Good. If you guys want, we can grab you guys some chairs. You guys okay? Okay. It's good to see all you guys. Thanks for coming. So, actually got in here kind of early, so we may, depending on how long tonight goes, we may end up getting done a little bit early, depending on, it's really, this is a night for you guys. One of the things we've been hoping to do with these parent nights is try to find ways to help resource you guys as parents. And how can we help sort of you in your role as parents and really as sort of the bishops of your family? And what are things we can help you find or get or whatnot in order to really help out? You know, like I always say, like no one gave us a parenting manual when we got a kid, which is unfortunate. But so you kind of figure it out as you go along, right? And that's what we do. And there are days we get it right and days we maybe don't get it right. So one, have grace for yourself. But yeah, so then the other thing is we want to kind of partner together and figure, hey, how can we do this? You know, how can we be better parents and how can we figure this stuff out? So we have a guest speaker tonight. Her name is Jennifer Sharp, and she is on staff over at Hardy and Stevens Counseling here in Elk River, and they're a great resource. And as you guys know, probably know, I mean, it doesn't take a lot to recognize, but adolescents and actually adults these days. But really, are focusing on adolescents, but are just really struggling in many, many ways with different things such as anxiety, depression. A lot of teens today are, self-hurting or self-harming, So whether it's cutting or some sort of eating disorder or other kinds of ways. We've all heard stories of suicide, probably with someone close to you or someone who knew someone. And interestingly enough, I heard a report recently that the number of adult males in the 30 to 40-year-old age bracket is actually seeing an increase in suicide and suicide attempts. And mostly because I feel like at that age, men, for whatever, because of sort of the cultural expectations put on them, feel this immense pressure to sort of be the provider and all these things. And so when things don't work out, as sometimes things don't work out, then that's why we see a lot of 30-year-old to 40-year-old men sort of suffering in that way. So tonight really is for you guys. So I asked Jennifer to come. She came a couple years ago and shared with our leaders. Because as you know, we have adult leaders who are with your kids every week, and they're doing the best they can. But not many of us, I don't know if any of us, are trained therapists, or counselors, or psychotherapists. And so, in many ways, we're kind of doing the best we can. And so we wanted to have someone like Jennifer come in and really help us and kind of point us in the direction. So tonight, I'm going to have her just come and share. I'm going to kind of be up here with her. She told me, she's like, I didn't know the crowd was going to be so big, Brian. I said, yeah. So last time it was a little bit smaller, but I promised you guys would go easy on her. But really, she's going to share a little bit and kind of, about, it's sort of wide range. It's a big topic, right? So there's a lot to maybe cover. She's going to just do the best she can and kind of hit some main points. I'm going to interview her a little bit and maybe just sort of interject and maybe ask some questions that I think are pertinent to youth. And then we're going to open it up to questions where you can dialogue with her. And then if we do get done early, you guys are welcome to kind of maybe go hang out. And maybe I'm not sure if she'd be willing to, but as long as she's out here at 8:30 or whatever. Then maybe if you want to hang out, maybe you feel like maybe a private question, you can sort of come and pull her aside. But really grateful to Jennifer for coming. She's just doing this because she cares about you and cares about youth. And she's a great resource. So without further ado, please give some love to Jennifer. Are you okay right here?
Oh, there is a stool. All right, good.
Okay. So welcome. Thanks for coming. Yeah, not too bad. Yeah. If it's hot, it's hot. Just crack these doors open. Sorry, I'm wearing a sweater, so sorry.
You're thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, this feels great right here. Come on, Jennifer. I'll be in a little bit. So, I don't know if you want to start by kind of telling them who you are and what you do, and anything else that you feel like is in the way.
My name is Jennifer Sharp, and I'm a therapist at Hardy and Stevens, and I work predominantly with kids and adolescents, mostly adolescents. And I, kind of trying to think. I've been in this community doing it for about 6 years, and I did my training down in Minneapolis, and I was with a nonprofit for a number of years down there. So that's kind of my background.
Are you from Minnesota originally?
No, I'm from
Okay.
Wisconsin.
Okay. Oh.
Yes.
How about them Packers?
I'm married to a diehard Vikings fan.
Oh,
so
okay.
we don't even utter that word in our house.
Sorry. You were telling us what you did. Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I get a lot of the referrals for kids, and so now I work a lot with schools, and I get a lot of referrals from the county. And so I know that one of my gifts is not public speaking, so this is not my forte, so I get it. So just bear with me, but one of my gifts is my passion that I have for families and for adolescents. So, Ryan and I had met a few years ago and did that, and so I said I'd be willing to come over and just, I'm just one person with, one perspective, and so I'm not saying that I'm an expert on everything. It's just, one person to kind of offer some resources and to offer, links to other resources in the community if need be. So I don't know kind of what you want to get into.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about 4 things. What are you kind of thinking? Like, where do you want me to go
Yeah,
first?
so what I was thinking, and you guys can interject too, because this is really for you guys, but I know that a lot of kids that I talk to, and just sort of the stories that I hear, are that a lot of kids, and not by all means, not every kid, okay, feel a lot of pressure these days, feel a lot of, or maybe super busy, just a lot going on, and tend to talk about words like, they use like depression, or I feel depressed, or I feel anxious. So I don't know what would be helpful, but what would be helpful for me, I think, is how do we know if a kid really is depressed? How do we know if they're just tired, or just being a kid? Or how do we know, how to, and obviously we're not experts, but how do you kind of diagnose as a parent, and then what are some steps we can take kind of moving forward?
Right. Let me get to that section here. All right. So yeah, like Ryan said, I think that being a teenager has been stressful since the beginning of time. But boy, nowadays I think it's so much more stressful than when we were young. I mean, I tell the kids I work with all the time, I wouldn't go back and do it for $1 million in this day and age, especially with all the social media and everything else. It was stressful enough back then, and I think there is a lot more pressure on them, a lot more responsibility. I think there's a lot more competition to do, for colleges and to do well, so I think there's a lot more pressure on them, and then trying to sort of juggle sports and school and friends and work, and I think that families are taxed too. I mean, I just see families running ragged, trying to get everybody where they need to be. So, and so, we kind of start with that concept of stress. So stress is the body's response to stressful situations. So we all feel stress, and so stress in and of itself, separate from depression, anxiety, those other issues, can result in problematic symptoms and do damage to the body. And so we know that. And so especially when it continues over a long period of time. And so when we have this pressure on any of us, but these kids, it's going to have a cumulative impact on the body. And so I don't feel like it's that important to sort of tease out, is it depression, is it clinical depression, is it stress? It's like, well, what's not working, what's not feeling good, and then to kind of take it from there. So that can just be a start. The signs of stress are similar to that of, the depression. So you're going to see irritability, the concentration problems, crying, headaches, stomach aches, the physical stuff, anger, that restlessness, feeling wound up, feeling like they're, I hear a lot of feeling I just want to jump out of my skin. That emotional fatigue, just burnout, I think it might be, you're all of a sudden hearing like, I don't even like football anymore, I don't want to do it. It's like, what? It's been your passion, she's like, I'm done. So they get to that point.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it really is just, it's difficult to cope with all of it, and sort of, it's just kind of a lacking of coping skills to be able to deal with the high level of stress. And so then when that stress, that accumulates, then we can have some of those problems. Then we're going to see the depression developing, the anxiety, the substance abuse stuff, eating disorders, self-harm, suicide.
Yeah. So on the front, it sounds to me like maybe stress is a something like it's sort of maybe like one of the first things that tends to begin to happen before, and then it sort of progresses maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest factor, but then we also have, the genetic predisposition, and, it can just be sort of a chemical thing, so, but yeah,
Okay.
stress is a big precursor.
Okay.
Do you want a question?
Yeah, sure, oh yeah.
I just thought while you're on this one, is there other signs too, like, all of a sudden can they just withdraw and not talk much and just be quiet?
Yep.
And then we just like reassure them as a parent, we've seen our son go through different things, but we've just
Right.
said, talk to us, talk to somebody, make sure you have to talk to anybody. And he's like, well, I'm not depressed, he's
Right.
just changed in the last couple of years,
Yep.
he's more quiet, but is that ever one of the signs? Or?
It is. I want to just kind of give a brief thing because we have parents here, and I don't know if people are aware of this, but I think so, but I think this is really pertinent. The latest research has shown that striking changes take place in the brain during the teen years, and this has really challenged the previously long-held assumptions around the timing of brain maturation. And so what we're seeing now is that the brain doesn't look like a fully developed adult brain until the early 20s. And before this, that was not really the belief. And so we're kind of looking at, well, how does that impact the kids then? So we're still dealing with developing brains. So some of the things that we can kind of pinpoint on that the parts of the brain responsible for those more top-down control issues, so that direct regulation of the brain, of physiological functioning. So that is going to be affected by that. The impulses, we see that in that immature brain, and the planning ahead skills. And then the brain circuitry responsible for emotional responses is changing during these teen years. So we have enormous hormonal changes happening. And then we also have hormone systems involved in the brain's response to stress are also changing during this time. So I just think that's really, I think it's important, but it might just be a bunch of,
Yeah, you guys might recognize that, right? Yeah. So, this is not rocket science, but then sometimes I think we want to expect our kids to be adults, but
Right.
it's probably
And there are
almost
some that
impossible.
really,
Yeah.
And so one of the things that also has come to light is that these brain-based changes in the regulation of sleep are affected too. And so so that when we see a lot of kids who want to just stay up late, it's really because they're, due to that brain stuff, they're really having a hard time regulating that.
Okay.
And so these findings speak to the, teens, not only just hormones, but difficulty managing emotion. The brain is really not fully capable of doing that a lot of times. Sleep issues, the impulsivity stuff. A lot of times with boys, we might see a little bit more aggression. And just the ability to carry out those mental tasks, that planning ahead kind of executive functioning stuff we are going to see some of those deficits, and that speaks to that, and that doesn't mean that that's going to be hard.
Right.
There's a little bit more maturity that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's important.
So I think that
you're not crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Your expectations are high for when they're teenage years now, and you think that they should act like adults, but then I guess technically now
Right.
they're not fully developed.
Yeah.
I even heard a study, I don't want to get sidetracked, but about these young men who have gone to prison because they've committed a violent crime as a young adult, and there are people that are suggesting we reevaluate this because they're not, their brains for the adults,
Right.
they can't think beyond,
Right, that frontal cortex
Yeah.
that we know that really does impact a lot of that stuff, especially
Yeah.
for those young males.
Yeah. So what can we do as parents? I mean, we notice our kids sort of maybe sort of exhibiting some of these traits.
Well, so the point was that I think that she had made was that it is difficult to differentiate between depression and normal teenage moodiness. Like it's like, oh my lord, oh bad.
We don't have a problem with
So this makes things more complicated. Teens with depression do not necessarily appear sad, nor do they always withdraw from others. So for some depressed teens, the symptoms of irritability, aggression, and rage are more predominant. So really the number one symptom of teenagers with depression is irritability. And then a lot of times the boys will either that really withdrawn, shut down, or the aggression stuff. And so, so some of the signs and symptoms of depression in teens. So number one, any, especially abrupt or really significant changes in personality, mood, or behavior are red flags. Okay, what's going on? This is really abrupt. This really seems like a big change.
Okay.
The sadness, the hopelessness, irritability, tearfulness, withdrawal from friends and family, but not always. It might be just sort of withdrawal from certain friends or family, not all.
Okay.
They might still want to be with, a few friends or just this person. So it's not always,
Mhm.
what we're really finding is that it's not from everybody, a lot of
Okay.
times in the teens.
Is there a reason for that?
I
Is
don't
it-
know.
Okay.
I don't really know. I didn't
Okay.
look
Yeah, no.
that
it's-
deep into it. I just know that that's kind of one of the
Yeah.
things that we see. Again, changes in eating and sleeping habits, loss of interest in activities, restlessness and agitation is really one that I see. Just feeling like they're just wound. I think that's just that kind of that added pressure stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
That feeling of worthlessness, guilt, fatigue, lack of energy, lack of motivation, difficulty concentrating, dark, sort of preoccupation with kind of dark interests or disturbing interests like that. A lot of times, especially some of these kids who are really good artists will really start to kind of draw these really dark, disturbing images, and parents are really freaked out.
Yeah.
And that can be one of the signs.
Okay.
It can also be sort of an expression,
Yeah.
just a way that they're expressing or something
Yeah.
that being artistic, so
Yeah.
I don't always jump to that
Right.
as a bad thing. And so there are a lot of differences between teen depression and adult depression. I don't
Okay.
know if you want to get into that, but just, again, it's that irritability or angry mood versus that sadness or shutdown that we might more see in adults. Also, just the unexplained aches and pains, they might just be, that the somatic stuff might just be bringing about the physical, complaints. A lot of
Yeah.
times, that's really one of the key symptoms or telltale signs for teens that something's going on. It's like, hey, he's complaining about
Yeah.
headaches and,
So it could be
head hurts.
psychosomatic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it could just be sort of presenting that way.
Okay,
Just
yeah.
coming out that way.
Okay.
And then extreme sensitivity to criticism, but again, how do you change that? Especially in the girls,
My 10-year-old son.
Well, it sounds like it can be a fine line with all the
Right,
hormones
yeah, that,
or.
yeah, so it's tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you can, does someone have a question? Yeah.
How do you diagnose them? If somebody came in
Yeah.
and had these symptoms, how do professionals say, yes, this student is depressed or this one isn't?
So it's based on a reporting of symptoms, and so we have like a low-grade depression called dysthymia, so that would be sort of this lower grade. It's not, we don't have the major stuff going on. So there's different levels of depression. It might just be what we would call an adjustment disorder. And so it's like a direct response to some situation that we can kind of, okay, you know what, this transition to high school has been really painful. It's, we can kind of say that this was really the biggest, stressor that maybe resulted in this, and so that would be an adjustment. And then we have the major depressive disorders. So it's really based on reporting of symptoms, and then there's certain like time, for more than 6 months or that kind of thing. And it's based on, reporting with parents and the teen himself.
So let's say some of us are experiencing these things with our team. Should we like document them or keep track of sort of, not to be weird about it, but just to kind of pay more attention to how long it lasts or the severity of it?
I think so. I think, I don't think it's as much documenting specifics. I think it's really just to sort of keep gauging that concern.
Yeah.
Okay, something's not
Yeah.
working here.
Okay.
So whether it's stress or, it's really a clinical depression, it's like, we can help. We can do something to help this kiddo, right?
Do you find that like the teenagers are able to express, yeah, something is going on, I don't feel right, or do they recognize it all the time?
I would say more often than not, they are pretty good reporters and they're open. They're willing to say
Okay.
like, even the boys. I think more often than not they are able to say like, I'm depressed or so they're pretty good about that.
So we can go ahead and we should ask our kids and just say, hey.
Do you want to get into that kind of stuff with the parenting?
Sure, or whatever. Yeah, sure. I
Or,
don't want to take you off track if you're going somewhere
no,
else.
and that's okay.
Okay.
But would it?
Yeah. Is that, or what do you guys?
I have some information on different anxieties, if you want to get into that or not, doesn't matter. But also the self-harm, I think, is a good one to get into because it's so rampant. It's really, really
I think
common.
another thing is when does the threshold get crossed where you need professional
Right.
intervention?
Right.
Yeah.
And do you just make the appointment, or are they willing to admit it to us, or are they more open to you, is the question too, once they get.
Well, and I've had pretty good luck with, you know, them, because I really just say, somebody's got a concern, I'm willing to prove parents wrong. Like, if you don't think anything's wrong, let's figure it out, let's explore it, and then we'll say to mom, you know, if there's any concern, this is why, and, you know, be done with it that way. So you know, I always just say, I'm willing to approach it from any place. Do we have a problem or not? I don't, you know, let's just figure it out. Somebody's got a concern here. So, but they've generally been, you know, pretty open and, you know, reporting their stuff.
Okay, so I guess maybe one of the questions I have is, and what it sounds like maybe, is we have, let's say, you know, my son is exhibiting some of these things, and I talk to him about it, and he's sort of, you know, he agrees, yeah, something's going on. What are some things I can do, or what are some steps I can take? And then when do I say, okay, let's go talk to somebody?
Well, I think you always want to err on the side of caution, and so
Okay.
if it just feels like, just let's, you know, let's try to kind of deal with it. Let's see if we can get him talking, or kind of, you know, if you're able to kind of get him out of the funk sometimes, you can kind of see that elevated mood. If he's happy, sometimes it's like, okay, let's see if this can kind of. But if we're never seeing that, then it's like, boy, he's just been down, he's been sad. I never see him laughing anymore. It's like, okay, wait, something's going on.
Okay.
But if he's able to be distracted, and it's like, okay, now he's just in a mood, you know, that can,
Okay,
then that's
yeah.
not as concerning.
Okay.
But I think if there are concerns, it's always worth, you know,
Yeah.
just at least an appointment.
Okay.
Check it out.
Okay.
You know, talk with
Yeah.
teachers and see what they're seeing. But I think with
Yeah.
teens, some of them are so, they do struggle with, you know, acknowledging that to parents. But again, I guess I have to say that a lot of times especially with the girls, I'll say, you know, what brings you guys in here today? Because I meet with the parents, and they'll say like, well, she wanted to see somebody. She asked if she could see a counselor. So that's at least a good thing. I think that there's more of an acceptance in their, you know, in their community as teens
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
I bet they're, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Which
Might be
I.
the thing right now.
Yeah. My
Every
contact
kid.
was cool. My dad is sort of old school, and when I talk about counselors, he's always like, but because we do have, there's sort of this thought process that, like, you know, Americans we sort of pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and we figure it out. But so he's my stepdad. My real dad was abusive. But when I grew up, I was put into counseling at an early age, and I always found it helpful. Not every night I went, but like, man, it was so good for me. So I'm a firm believer in counseling. I know some parents are always a little bit like, because maybe you feel like it exposes a weakness and you feel like you're weak if you go see a counselor. But just personally, I'm a huge advocate for it. I actually still see a counselor sometimes. Me and Kate, I don't think she'd mind me saying, my wife. But you know, we also talk about premarital counseling, but what about postmarital counseling? I think that's what you need it the most. Right? So I got a guy we go to. He's fantastic. So anyway, I'm a huge advocate for that. So. Cool. Do you want to talk a little about anxiety? Maybe what is anxiety? What is the difference between anxiety and depression and stress? And maybe how it relates to self-harm?
All right, so anxiety. So there are different, my brain gets too ahead of me.
Yeah, no, it's all right. She's doing great, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, let's see. All right, so there are different types of anxiety disorders. So we have generalized anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, phobias, social anxiety disorder, panic attacks, PTSD. And now we just had a new DSM manual printed, and so everything's changing. But right now, as it stands, these are sort of our anxiety disorders. So the symptoms of anxiety for kids, we see that it affects the mind and the body. So the body is going to feel, you know, again, that wound up, that difficulty relaxing, lots of digestive problems, nausea, lots of back, upper back, neck, shoulders. I hear that all the time in their reporting. Just trembling hands or legs, sweaty palms, just that muscle tension. That hypervigilance, like they just always feel like they're, you know, on edge, can't even sleep, like they sleep but then wake up. You know, it's just like,
Yeah.
it really affects everything.
Yeah.
And then the mental symptoms would be the difficulty concentrating, the changes in diet and sleep patterns, feelings of depression or hopelessness, worry, just the what ifs, it just goes to this crazy place, everything, the mind is just racing. A lot of social anxiety is kind of tied into the anxiety. I see a lot of social anxiety, just that really that extreme sensitivity to just to that what peers are thinking, what they're, I mean, it's just really big right now. I see a lot of that. And so within, of course, the different types of anxiety, there's the different symptoms, but kind of that generalized anxiety disorder is when you're feeling those physical and mental symptoms most of the time. You just really, anxiety kids really cannot get away from them, even when things are going okay. And so again, we're gonna have those kids who are, that temperament, when we're little, we know that's the shy kid, that's the kind of the reserved kid, that's the one who takes a little bit of time to warm up. We have the genetic predisposition. So parents will kind of know, like, okay, this one's a little bit more, this is my worrier. Usually it's kind of the firstborn, you can kind of say like, and so there's a lot of temperament that plays into this, genetic predisposition, a lot of, anxiety and depression both really kind of come down that family tree. So you're going to kind of know, like, something's really up. So a lot of the times, it's just that wound up, real irritability, snappy, just looks a little different than depression.
Okay, yeah. Which I always think is cool, or not cool, interesting. Because if we are more holistic beings, then it shouldn't be surprised that our insides, like how we feel on the inside, sort of comes out on the outside. So you maybe do get the headaches or the tension, like the back, or stomach aches, and like I was always taught, when you have a kid who has a lot of stomach aches, so there could be something there,
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't think they're connected.
And more and more, the treatment for anxiety is including that more holistic approach, chiropractic care, that biofeedback.
So is that where you're getting eventually can some of that start leading into self-harm then?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, it's like, what do you do with that pain? I mean, it's constant pain, it's constant discomfort, they can't get away from it. So, you kind of jump into self-harm.
Yeah,
You kind
that'd
of
be
go
helpful to
back,
talk about
whatever
self-harm a little
you
bit.
wanna do.
Or any questions about anxiety or the stress or depression?
Could you speak to some coping skills for parents who think their kids are anxious or
Yes.
anxious?
Can we do that a little bit? Should we just wait a little bit for that? But yes, that's definitely what we'll be talking about. So the self-harm stuff, which is just really, again, like I said, it is really out there. And I think, you've been aware, your staff have been aware of that issue over the last few years. But so self-harm behaviors, or what we call self-injurious behaviors, they can include, like cutting is the most common. We've got cutting up the arms, legs is kind of the most common. Burning, a lot of times I see the erasing, so it's an eraser that they're rubbing and it kind of burns the skin. Head banging, that's a little less common, and then less common, inserting sharp objects into the body, swallowing harmful objects, cutting out circulation, scalding behaviors, or scalding showers. So it's any kind of just that self-harming stuff. So this is where a lot of parents get scared, like they don't know, like, this is, generally speaking, and again, I always say err on the side of caution, but generally speaking, self-harm behaviors are not life-threatening for the most part, or an attempt to end one's life. So the underlying mindset between someone who's suicidal and someone who self-harms is very different.
Okay.
So suicide is, of course, the thing like, I'm done, I don't have any more in me, and the self-harm is like, I can't cope. And so the reasons for self-harm, generally, it's a way of trying to cope with that inner pain. And a lot of times I see it a lot more in anxiety kids. So the reasons that we're seeing the self-harming, it's difficulty coping with and talking about emotions, relief from overwhelming negative emotions. They just can't handle what that feels like, any troublesome emotion. A lot of times we hear this, they describe it as this building up of these emotions. So it's almost like anything that is difficult kind of adds to this pile, and finally it's just this building, and then they finally just have to get to that point where they just have to get the release. It's a way of punishing themselves or others for something, feeling like others only care about them if something bad happens. It can make the pain inside visible, And so when it's visible, it's easier to understand and or get recognized, so it can kind of be like, oh, something's going on. Feeling bad about themselves, feeling alone and isolated, and hurting themselves is the only way they feel real or connected. Feeling out of control, a lot of times control and self-harm is the only way they feel in control. And then this is a big one that I hear, it's like feeling numb. I feel numb and I just have to do it to feel something. And so they do that to just at least feel something, so they constant numb feeling. So that helps some stuff.
Okay, so if we find out that our kid is cutting, or any one of those, what are some steps we take?
Oh boy, well that's a tough one, you know, I think that, does everyone need to get dragged into therapy? You know, probably not. And I think there is a little bit of copycat stuff, but I still say that it's still something that's there. Why are you kind of, okay, everybody else is doing this, I gotta do this, to sort of deal with something or show that, you know, something. But
Well, with that social media and the YouTube stuff,
yes,
because a couple years ago, that cinnamon and sugar stuff, and I mean, they see somebody else doing it, and like you
Yeah.
said, that internet is a good thing nowadays and a bad thing, I mean, with
Right.
all the pressure with the kids, I think,
Yeah.
where they see this stuff, and then,
and boy, they put it out there, holy smokes,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
I remember telling our son a couple years ago, just because you see them and you don't have to do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's, you know, worth the conversation. I think what parents get stuck in a lot of time, and I get it as a parent, like, it's like, let me see your arms, you just want to check, okay, let me see your body.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's where they kind of get into this fight, and it's like, well, that's really a symptom, as awful as it is to see those cuts on your kid. And so really what it is, you know, a lack of coping skills, like something's going on, something's not working, and so it's, well, let's talk about it, you know, and then you kind of say like, this isn't okay, okay. Do we need some help? Do you want to go see someone? You know, then you have to kind of do that, like, what do I do as parents? So it is a tricky one.
Okay.
And then sometimes it does take sort of another person to kind of say like, well, let's talk about kind of the, you know, the pros and cons of maybe finding an alternative way,
Yeah.
in which we're not going to hear from our parents, you know, roll our eyes, it's like, I don't care about scars, or I don't care about this, you know. But if someone else can kind of help them to see like, you know, long-term, second factor, what might this look like in your relationships, that kind of thing. Then it's like, we have to get that buy-in, we have to get them to say like, okay, this might not be okay. This might not be the best way to cope with myself, because it works.
Yeah.
It helps, and that's the problem. And so, like what I tell the parents, I said, I'm not going to say, stop cutting, I'm not going to check arms. I'm going to say, let's fill up this side of being able to deal with stuff and have it do this. Because we can't take this away. Because sometimes that's the difference between surviving and not surviving. For some kids who are really in pain.
Okay.
You know? So that's a tough concept for parents.
Yeah. Because you want to deal with what's causing them to do that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So
Yeah.
we want to replace it. We want to find some different ways of
Yeah.
living it up.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because that's making them feel so much better
Yeah.
at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah. Any questions about that? That's a good. And this is a.
Yeah, is your counseling faith-based, and what element does faith help or hinder the kid?
Well, each therapist kind of incorporates it differently. I just say, when I work with a kid or a family, I just say that I work here because it's my value system, and so it can be in here, it doesn't have to be in here. It's up to you. Like, I'm not praying, you pray. If not, there's no part in here. It's just, I work here because it's my value system. Because everybody has one, but I don't bring that in here. Just a way that I can kind of own that. So they're gonna have to, well, do you have kids? Well, what do you do?
Right.
So, does that answer?
Yeah, I was just trying to, you know, we probably all have kids that are going through this change right now as we speak. And you see a difference between the kids that don't have a faith versus ones that do have a faith or are actively pursuing it.
Well, I think so. I mean, I think that it's anything that we can kind of, what's your foundation? What's sort of this support system? What's this positive thing that we can sort of build on or draw upon, you know, so that we can deal with this yuck stuff. So there's your faith, whether it's, you know, friends, family, you want to have this strong foundation. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good one.
Yeah. Good question. Is there a, is there someone that, okay, so with the cutting, is there some, or with any of these things, is there someone we can call without maybe as a first step? I think of a school counselor, can we call somebody, or is there like I'm just thinking out loud, like a hotline, or can we talk to somebody that would say, that can help us? I think sometimes as a parent, we're like, I don't know, is this weird, is this normal, is this, someone that we can call or ask, or just check in with to kind of see what.
There are some, I had some, too, and this is something that you can maybe email people.
Yes, yeah. I want to hang on to that. Okay.
So that's just one connection. I think that, if you,
She's going to give me some of these things. I'm going to email them to you guys. I'll have Casey do that.
and then, the county is always a good resource if you want to go on that, site. You can always just talk to an intake social worker. That's what they're there for. Just kind of say, hey, what should I do here? What are the resources in the community?
And certainly the school counselor.
School counselor.
Be in contact with them. And,
Another one, I work in human resources, so I get employees that come to me with all kinds of topics, home or work related. And a lot of companies, including ours, have like an employee assistance program, and it's free. And so I usually share that with our employees, saying, give them a call, it's confidential, it's free, it can at least guide you in the right direction.
Great.
What you need.
Yeah.
So just remember, if your employer might offer that.
That is a really good point. And I do get a lot of, actually, because I've connected with the EAP. I'm a therapist that is credentialed through a lot of the different EAPs, and a lot of our therapists are, so, yeah. So that's how we do really have people.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah.
I just know the United Way used to offer
Oh,
a
yeah.
free 24-hour crisis hotline. It's anonymous.
Yes.
They'll talk you through anything and just kind of guide you, and you don't have to go
Yeah,
in
great.
lane
Yes,
or-
that's a great resource. And what is it, like 211 from any
211.
phone or whatever?
Is it still
211?
211?
Oh.
It used to be 211.
Yeah.
211.
Yeah.
Right now?
So it's free.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's
you
completely
can Google
anonymous,
it too.
24/7.
United Way.
Yep.
Yeah.
United Way.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good one. I always feel like sometimes as parents we're just like, I just don't know. I can't. You need like some help just for discerning what's going on. Certainly, you can come and talk to the staff here, and if we don't know, we'll try to help point you in the right direction too. So, well, we've got about maybe 13 minutes left. Oh, yeah.
Any suggestions or ideas or anything, input that you can give, if you have a child who is dating somebody who is harming themselves, whether it's an eating disorder or cutting themselves, how can you best direct your child that way? They're not harming themselves, but they have anxiety because the one they're dating is harming themselves.
And boy, they all want to be therapists. I'll tell you what, they want to fix their friends and be there and have their phone next to them 24/7 to answer and help. And yes, which is a very common thing. One of the things that I had found that I use a lot is this is clues. So 5 action steps to help a troubled person. And so connect, make contact, listen, understand, express concern, seek help. And so if you want to email that out.
Yeah.
But what I usually say to kids is, you cannot fix them. I can't fix them. I can work with them and we can get to a healthy place. I can't fix them, like I'm trying to fix them. So we can't fix our friends, and so what we can do is, how do we be a good support person on that healing journey? I mean, like the person's struggling with some stuff. And so, to really help them to understand, you can't do it. You can't be the everything to this person. And it's not helpful for them. Like it's not getting them healthy if that's what's happening. How do we get them healthy? How do we get you to be a strong support person to help this person? Because this isn't going to do it. Because they want to just, that is a tough one.
I think that there are a lot of support groups through the high school that the kids can be involved with now. There's a child
people, Rivers of Hope that works with the high school, they have therapists that come in, I don't know how, it's like once a week or twice a week or something like that. And there's a lot of kids involved in those programs, where they just sit down and they meet each other and support each other and just talk about what's going on.
A lot of the schools do have contracts with mental health agencies. I don't know that Elk River does right now. I think that fell through where they were with that. But, and so generally there will be some of those resources right on site there. So
Okay, yeah.
that might be a question, also for the school counselors, because that would be a different role than them, or from them. Just a little blurb on what I will say to kids, so being a helping friend. So it's important to remember that you cannot be responsible for another person's actions when they are stressed, depressed, or suicidal. So whether they're crying out for help or suffering silent despair, only they can help themselves. So what you can do is be the most caring and responsible friend possible during the hard times. This means listening to their concerns, supporting them, and helping them get skilled help from a trusted and capable adult friend. And so encouraging them, let me know, if you have concerns about your friends, and I will handle it as, as delicately as possible. So lay that, foundation, okay, I'll back off, but if you promise that if you start to get really worried about him or her, you'll come and tell me. That's the deal, that's it. That kind of thing. And I think that kids really, I've had a lot of good experiences where kids have reached out and said, okay, I'm scared for my friend, I'm scared. And they've gone to parents, they've gone to teachers. So that's good news. I'm glad that is happening.
Yeah. Cool. Is that helpful?
I have a question, Ryan.
Yeah.
What do stressed or depressed kids need from their parents?
Well, I think that they need, again, we have this sort of, the developmental phase that they're in is, that autonomy. So they're sort of working to figure out who they are. And so you're going to get this push-pull, like, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, I need you, get away, get over here, kind of that stuff. And so it's like, yeah, I totally do. And so it's sort of, I think, whether they're, stressed, it's about helping them to be part of the solution. And so say, yeah, let's figure this out together, or, let's talk, or it looks like you're stressed. So there might be some options, what can we do? And so it's like that problem solving with them. Kind of say like, this has worked for me. Could it work for you? That's just an idea, that's a suggestion. I know that Dad, does this, that helps him. So it's just sort of offering options so then they can kind of figure, I like that one, that one. But a lot of times parents, especially dads, bless their hearts, they have that fix-it man brain and they just want to fix it, just do this, and it's like, well, it's not quite as easy as that, have to sort of join them, help join their journeys and help them really struggling. And so it's just really inviting that communication, inviting that dialogue to say it looks like you're really struggling.
You're problem solving together so they don't feel like they're so different what they're going through either.
Right. Yeah. I remember that year. Yep, that's a tough year. Want to hear what was helpful for me? That kind of thing. Just getting that dialogue going.
Yeah. I heard this. I'm hesitant to say it because I cannot remember where I heard it. It might have been a professor friend of mine, or it might have been my counselor. But and our kids are all older, but I still think I just have heard the benefits of, and especially with dad. I don't know what it is about the dad. But physical touch, just having a parent put their arm around a kid.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Like, I always experience it too, where kids are like, they love you, they don't love you. They want you around, they want you as far away as possible. But physical touch and having a dad put his arm around his daughter or his son, and loving on them, sometimes some of us aren't that comfortable with it, but I don't know. I've heard that just that does something for the kid, and it can be helpful. So.
And a lot of times I will work with families because the kids want to receive that support. They want it, but they don't want to talk. They don't want to It's like I'm needing something, but I don't want to talk. I don't want to get into something. So it's just like, okay, let's try this. When you just need something, Mom and Dad, let's see if you can agree to not talk. Just say, okay, can we sit down for a little bit on the couch? Just sit next to them. No talking. That's the agreement. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
You can initiate the conversation if you want to talk, but otherwise just sit there with them.
Yeah, that's really good, yeah.
So that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Because they want it, they do.
yeah,
I want you to just sit there, but you don't want to talk about it.
right, yeah. That, I have, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to, branch off of the touch thing with dads.
Yeah.
Kids. I have to talk to my kids a lot about different love languages
Mhm.
because their dad loves them like a 10-year-old boy.
Yeah,
He picks on them, he pushes them,
Yeah.
he shoves them, he pulls their hair. And they thought he was being mean until I explained that to him. That's what 10-year-olds do when they like you. And that's what your dad's doing. And until I explained it to them that way, they never understood that that's how he loves. So I think that's important too, to talk to your kids about different love languages with, we've got old school dads, we've got all different kinds of people, and the way they express that is very different sometimes, and it's hard to recognize.
I think that is fantastic. I mean, I think you really made the difference between this and this with just that conversation with the kids.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, because there is different expressions of love.
Absolutely. I mean, some people never say the words, they just can't say them.
Yeah.
You understand it, but that's what they are.
Cool, any last minute questions? Has this been helpful?
Yeah.
I think also just as,
Yeah.
for the, parenting helping, I think it's just really about the validating. Don't be like, oh, it's not a big deal, don't worry about it,
Mhm.
it's gonna be fine. Well, we are worried about it, and you saying that is making me really mad,
Yeah,
because I am worried. And
Yeah.
so, just saying, it looks like you're really worried about that. And
Yeah.
just validate it and go, no, okay, I'm worried about it.
yeah, that's a good one, that's a huge one.
Well, we wanna do that, we're like, no, it's fine, it's gonna be
Yeah.
fine.
Or that's not a big deal, don't worry
Right,
about it.
right. Like, 5 years from now, it's not gonna matter,
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
you
yeah,
got a bad
yeah.
haircut, it's like, oh, come on. It's the end of the world right now.
Yeah. And I would say too, you guys your kids have a journey group leader, and they're not like trained therapists, I don't think any of them are. But call them, let them know. I think having more loving, caring adults in the kid's life is awesome, and that kind of stuff. They can be praying for them, loving them, sometimes they may want to tell their journey group leader something. They may not want to tell you, and that's okay. It's good for kids to have different outlets, and so let them know. Fill them in and let the
Yes,
yeah.
that is a great point, and that is very important. And so you can say to your kids, I get it, if you don't want to talk to me, that's fine, I get it, but let's talk about some other adults, and then, we can set it up, or you can do it, whatever. I know that you and, your uncle have a good relationship, don't you? Just see if he's someone that you can just call whenever you want, kind of like, you can always talk to Ryan at youth group. It's like, sometimes it's just getting that permission, like, I can talk to a part of it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just that kind of thing, like, I know that your English teacher always asks, it's like, hey, seems like they want to know, you can talk to them, that's
Yeah.
okay, after that, but give that permission, just say, it doesn't have to be me,
Yeah.
it just has to be someone.
Yeah. Which just feels weird as a parent, but it's natural. Well, can I pray for us and then we can just go? Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So if they want to contact a counselor, can they contact Hardy and Stevens? Can they contact you? She's not here to promote herself. I want to give and they can just Google that, right?
Yeah.
So okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Well, let's just pray. I want to just pray for us as parents, and then we'll be done. So, Jesus, thank you for Jennifer and for counselors like her and therapists and people who are good at this. And we're so thankful for just their ministry of restoration and just helping, especially in this case, young ones be able to process things and give them coping skills so we just pray, God, that you would help us as parents to know how to parent well. And God, I pray that we would have grace for ourselves and know that you have grace for us on those days when we really, like I said, just sort of don't get it right. And God, help us to have wisdom and discernment as we parent. And help us to not be afraid of these stigmas or of yeah, just feel like we failed or our kids are failures. Help us to just be honest and be okay with things our kids are going through, and help us not to just breeze past things, but give us an eye for it. Give us soft hearts for our kids. We bless them, bless all of our kids, Lord. It is just a different world than it was years ago when we were kids. And so help us to see what life is like from them. Help us to be able to adopt their viewpoint and their vantage point and to be compassionate in that way. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, thanks you guys. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here.